Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. My name is David Holliday, the VP of National Student Exchange. I'm also the NSE coordinator at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities campus. Today's webinar is focused on the post-placement process, working with incoming students. So once you've accepted a student to come to your campus, what comes next? That's what we'll be focusing on today. This session will be about 30 minutes long. If you have questions or comments, please put them in the chat as we go through the presentation. Afterwards, we can certainly spend some time answering specific questions or troubleshooting issues you may be having on your campus. So the first thing I always encourage coordinators to think about is to be a good host. I got to move my window here. Consider these students as your guests, the same as if you were hosting a person coming to your home. Make sure they feel well supported and well prepared for their exchange coming to your campus. That is your responsibility as the host campus coordinator. Share important information with these students. Provide clear instructions and deadlines. These should be done in writing, specifically through emails. And students should know how to contact you, and you should respond when they have questions or concerns. So what comes first? Typically, there is a welcome email that should go out to students immediately after acceptance. Within a day or two, we really encourage you to reach out to those students that you've accepted. Remind them to sign the placement acceptance form that they would have received immediately after placement from their home campus coordinator, and also provide them a timeline of events so they know what to expect, especially if your onboarding process takes it happens in various stages, which actually it does on my campus. Typically, the very first thing after that initial welcome is the admissions application. This is something to communicate with your admissions office or somebody else on your campus to figure out how are these NSE students entered into your system. Oftentimes, it is an admissions application that they complete. On my campus, it's a specialized form, very similar to the transfer application form, but it's a little bit different. So whether it's the admissions application or a customized form, or I do know some campuses are able to pull the important information directly from the PAF, placement acceptance form, to get students entered into the system. Are they coded as degree or non-degree seeking students? That's an important question. Something hopefully that you're aware of already, how your NSE students are coded. And then whether or not transcripts are required. Many of us collect transcripts in order to enter them into the system and for advising purposes. It's important to communicate to them whether that's required, and if so, if you do need a transcript, if it should be official or unofficial. I always encourage campuses to collect unofficial transcripts from students because those are free. Students usually have to pay for official transcripts. The other question is some campuses will collect that transcript immediately after placement to get them into that admissions process. But consider, is that actually important? Or can you wait until after their spring grades are posted? Again, if you're requiring official transcripts, minimizing the number of times you're requiring that transcript would be important. Important thing to consider. Another thing to be aware of on your campus and communicate to students is whether or not there's an admissions application fee. We encourage campuses to waive any sort of admissions application fee that would be collected, but we know some campuses cannot waive that fee. Usually part of this first wave of information that you're collecting from an incoming student might include the health insurance information. If your campus requires proof of health insurance, collect that at this point. Some campuses will collect a health history form or immunization form. That's also something to collect when students are accepted to your campus. And some campuses charge an NSE program fee. This should be something that is posted on your campus profile, visible to students even before they apply. But you need to determine when that fee is collected. I actually collect the fee once students have come to campus. I post it directly to their student account, but I do know some campuses will collect that fee up front ahead of time. That we're going to talk more about that fee here in a little bit. Typically, after that admissions application is processed, this is when you're able to give to the student their student ID number. That's the purpose of that admissions application typically, and give them instructions on how to access your online systems, your registration system, your billing system, all of those things. So make sure, again, you share that information with students and give them adequate instructions and support. Okay, usually what happens next is the registration process. So you need to communicate with students, and I would say this is probably one of the most complicated and one of the most stressful parts of onboarding an incoming NSE student. So communicate with them. How do they register for classes? Number one is how do they view the current course catalog or the schedule? Usually by the time you've accepted students, that next academic term, that fall 2026 course schedule should be available. So give them instructions on how to view that course schedule. When and how do they register for classes? So when I accept an incoming student, they are put into our registration system and they're given an assigned registration time. And I give them instructions on how to navigate that online registration system. But I do know of some NSE campuses that actually handle registration on behalf of students. The coordinator does registration for them. So communicate that to them. How and when will they register for classes? An important part of registration, even for our own students, but especially for incoming NSE students, are how to handle prerequisites or co-requisites, as well as how to handle permission if necessary to get into certain classes. So this is a campus-specific process. Again, I know some coordinators that can help with registration. They're able to override those prerequisites or give permission directly. On my campus, I actually direct students to the instructor of the course to verify that they have the adequate prerequisite and to request a permission number. So being very clear and giving clear instructions on how to complete that process is important. Another part of the process at this point is how to get syllabi for home campus equivalency evaluation. So while the students are looking to register at the host campus, they should be working with their home campus NSE coordinator and probably their academic advisor to make sure those courses are going to transfer back to the home institution. More and more campuses are requiring syllabi to complete that course equivalency. And so that's an important process to explain as well. On my campus, some of our colleges have online repositories of transcripts, and so I can direct of syllabi. I'm sorry, that I can send direct students to collect those syllabi. Other times, again, they have to reach out to the instructor or the department. So provide guidance for those students. And then I asked this question before, but can you help with the registration process? Some of us have been doing this for a long time, that we really do understand that the registration process on our campus can offer a lot of support. Some of you may be able to actually do the registration for students. I also recommend setting up a solid relationship with an academic advisor that you can refer the student to for help with selecting courses, but especially things like verifying prerequisites, obtaining permission numbers, things like that. Support your students through this process. Again, you are their point person. You've accepted them to come to your campus, so follow through with support through that registration system. Remind these students to have course flexibility. That is an expectation of all NSE students. No courses are guaranteed. Sometimes you may have to remind them about those closed or limited programs that are posted on your campus profile. And also remind students that enrollment is based on availability. Some of our campuses, NSE registration occurs at the end of registration, and that means sometimes classes are full. So make sure they know what the wait list process is, if they can register or if they can get put on a wait list, how that works as well. Use your campus network of advisors and faculty. On some of our larger campuses like my own, where we have different colleges, we have different departments, many of them have different processes for registration and gaining permission. So I have key contacts in each of the college that I can refer a student to whenever issues arise. I know some campuses will arrange a virtual tutorial on the registration process. So schedule a Zoom meeting or record yourself going through the registration process. I actually lean on some of my student workers because they are using that registration system on a semesterly basis. And so they can sometimes help students walk through that process as well. One thing I really recommend, this is a helpful tip, is to ask students to send you their list of preferred classes and a few backup options. Again, if you're familiar with the registration process, sometimes you can sort of head off any potential issues. If a student is requesting a course that's in a closed department, or if you anticipate there being difficulty registering for certain classes, you can help kind of intervene and maybe redirect the student. So that's been a really helpful thing that I've been doing the last couple of years. Okay, so oftentimes after the student has that student ID number and after they're starting to think about registration, usually the housing process comes next. For most of us, most NSE students prefer on-campus housing. And so if your campus offers on-campus housing, you need to give them instructions. What is the application process and deadline? Make sure if students are applying directly through your housing website, make sure they know what website to use, what is the deadline for applying. What building and room options do they have? Some of these students are going to be upper division juniors and seniors. They may not prefer the housing that's predominantly for first year students. I think many times NSE students are looking for apartments and things like that on campus. Roommate selection. I have students ask me all the time, am I living with other NSE students? Am I living with other local students from that campus? If you can give them the choice, that's a really nice thing, but let them know how to request roommates. And sometimes NSE students are applying together, those linked exchanges, two students or more actually that may be applying together. They oftentimes are going to want to live together as well. When and how to pay for housing, make sure they understand that. The move in and the move out date so they can start planning their travel to and from your campus. What meal plan options do they have? Some campuses require meal plans, especially for students living in residential style housing as opposed to apartment style housing. So clarify that to your students. And related to this, as well as a parking permit. Some students are going to be driving to their host campus. Let them know how and when to apply for a parking permit. Off-campus options. So for those campuses that don't offer any on-campus housing, or those of us that cannot offer on-campus housing to every incoming NSE student, it's really nice to tell them what their options are if you're able to. I know some campuses really prevent, for liability reasons, giving suggestions or advice about off-campus housing. I encourage you to do the bare minimum, offer them access or direct them to those public sites and those public resources. Some of our campuses actually have an off-campus housing website where you can direct students. They can look for sublets and rooms for rent and things like that. Oftentimes there are Facebook groups. I've also seen Reddit subreddits for students looking for housing. So direct them to those off-campus or those public sites as well. The other thing that I've been doing a lot more recently is helping students with sublets. Sometimes my outgoing students need to sublet their apartment, and so I make those available to those incoming students. I collect a form for those outgoing students and share that with those incoming students, and oftentimes I'm able to match students up. Last week, actually, Jameson, who's placed at the University of Hawaii at Manoa for the spring, he's been panicking for the last couple of weeks because he has a lease that he signed for this upcoming spring semester, but he's planning to go to Hawaii. I was able to pair him with one of my incoming students coming from Mississippi State, actually. And so both of them are doing each other a favor. Regarding on-campus housing, it's really important to build a positive working relationship with your housing office. It's very helpful to have reserved spaces for NSE students. I think most of our campuses, maybe not all, but many of them do have capacity issues. There are more students seeking housing than they have available on the campus. So it is very helpful. It's a nice service. It's a good thing as a host to have some reserved spaces in your on-campus housing, apartments and residence halls and things like that, to make those available to those NSE students. So negotiate that with your housing office. They may give you a specific deadline. The student needs to apply by May 15th for that upcoming fall semester. Otherwise, those spaces go back to the general housing pool. So build that relationship and advocate for spaces for your NSE students. Last but not least, and again, I actually share this information in kind of three phases of emails that I send to those incoming students. I know some of, and the reason I do that is because getting that student ID number really allows all of these other dominoes to fall. But I know some of you share all of this information in a single email. That's great too, whatever works for your campus. But you also want to share with those students the academic calendar, specifically when do they need to arrive and when do they need to depart, because they're needing to make travel plans and sometimes buy plane tickets. The earlier you do that, the more affordable they may be. We encourage campuses to host an NSE orientation for those incoming students. So give them that date, time, and location. I'll talk more about orientation here in a minute. Um, Campus-specific info is important as well. Billing and payment info, especially if your campus is going to be collecting tuition or room or board or things like that before the students arrive. That's important to share with them at that point. Accessibility services, those things should be set up months in advance before the student comes to campus. So make sure students are connected with those resources. Mental health support as well. Many students want to set that up before they arrive. And then relevant local information. Make sure students understand public transportation options, weather, safety, culture, local media, fun stuff, etc. Again, these are things about being a host. Make sure students understand the resources and the fun stuff available to them as they're planning their exchange. I want to talk a little bit more about billing and payment info. So just a reminder, if you accept students on host payment, that means these students are paying resident rate tuition to your campus. So this is triggered in different ways on different campuses. Sometimes it's a manual assignment of a bill to a student's account, but usually it's triggered due to a course registration, or on my campus, I use PeopleSoft, and there's a specific student group, PeopleSoft student group that I put students in so they qualify for resident rate tuition when they come to my campus. Home pay students, again, they should not be billed your tuition. So maybe it's a manual waiver that is put in place. But again, if it's something that's triggered by registration or a placeholder or a student group for PeopleSoft, how and when is this waived? Make sure that's in place. When and how are they billed room and board? Are there course fees they're responsible for? And then those miscellaneous fees, these things that should be posted on your campus profile. Make sure students know when these will be posted and when they're expected to pay their bills. So regarding their student account, how do they view the bill? When and how do they pay? Are payment plans available? Many campuses will have an installment plan, maybe monthly, where they can break their bill up into 3 or 4 payments over the course of a semester. And this is an important question. And again, this is about relationship building with folks on your campus. Is an extension or a deferment available if their home campus financial aid does not arrive before the payment is due? So for many of our campuses, financial aid is dispersed at or around the start of the semester. I know some campuses will charge tuition, or especially room and board, before that semester begins. Students have to pay that bill before they even arrive. But if they don't have their financial aid available, it's a very nice service to offer that extension or that deferment. So talk with your bursar's office, with your billing office, to see if that's possible on your campus. These students can provide a proof of aid letter that would come from their home campus financial aid office saying X amount of dollars will be available on X date. That usually is enough. It is on my campus to offer that extension or that deferment. Again, so we're not putting undue hardship on students. Okay, the last minute stuff. This is something I do and that I highly recommend is reach out to your students 3 or 4 weeks before they arrive. I've been doing a Zoom meeting about a month before the semester starts, just again to meet students and to maybe address any concerns or questions they have at that point. Remind them about how to get to campus if they're flying into the local airport, or maybe the airport's not local, maybe it's a ways away. Let them know about transportation options, maybe getting to and from your campus. Move-in reminders, what date should they plan to move in? They typically are getting information from the housing office directly about move-in, room assignments, things like that, but make sure you're supporting students through that too. Where to get that student ID card. My students who come to my campus, they can show up and with a driver's license, typically get their student ID card before the term starts. And that's oftentimes necessary to get into certain buildings or certainly into their residence hall. Remind them about that orientation that hopefully you've scheduled. And I actually give students my cell phone number in case of emergency. If there's something that happens when they're coming to campus or once they've arrived, I want them to be able to reach out to me. And again, offer continuous support to ease stress and reduce attrition. Again, a lot of NSE students, this is their first time away from home. And so being a good host and supporting them through this process, which may be difficult, a difficult transition for them, is really important. We want to ease their stress and we want to reduce attrition. I think we do see higher cancellation rates when students are not being supported, if they're not hearing from their host campus or their home campus for that matter, oftentimes they're going to cancel their placement. Okay, once they've arrived, please meet your students. You are their host. We really want students to connect with you personally when they come to your campus. So meet with them. Oftentimes, that's done through an orientation. I know there are some campuses that direct NSE students to the general campus orientation, or oftentimes it's the transfer student orientation that may be a little bit more relevant to them. But especially if you have a higher number of NSE students, I encourage you to host an NSE specific orientation. Provide information to them about expectations, academic and financial, your campus policies regarding code of conduct and housing expectations. Remind them again about these critical processes, how and when to pay their bills, add and drop registration policies. Remind them about campus services, about campus clubs, safety and security matters if that applies to your location. Cultural differences, I think that's very important. NSE is a cultural exchange, even if you're going a couple hundred miles away. And then do fun stuff. So for my orientations, we do a small walking tour. We have in the past gone to the Minnesota State Fair, which is a couple miles away from campus. So do some fun activities with these incoming students. And that's the reason maybe to collect that fee. If you have an NSE program fee, that might give you a budget to do some of these fun activities for students. During their exchange, get them connected to those welcome week events. Help them feel connected right away. This year actually is the first time where I was actually able to get permission for my NSE students to be involved in welcome week activities. Communicate frequently with these students. I actually have a group me set up similar to a group chat where I can share important reminders and information there. Give them reminders of dates and deadlines. If their bill is coming up, that first bill, let them know. Hey, double check your bill. Let me know if there's any mistakes. You got to pay your bill on time. Remind them about campus events and resources and give them a to-do list, things that they should be doing or accomplishing during their exchange. Meetings and activities. I try to engage my incoming NSE students in my info sessions and my recruitment events. I'm hosting a student right now from University of Hawaii Manoa, Caleb, who is doing a lot of info sessions and a lot of tabling and things like that. He's really hit the ground running. Make sure they're aware of campus or community events and organize maybe trips to bring those students. And consider hosting or organizing an NSE student group. I've presented on this topic with Jamie at FIU in the past. She is a dedicated student group that NSE students join, and that gives them a sense of identity and a sense of togetherness, I think. Also, that allows you to sometimes rent rooms for free and table and things like that. Some benefits of being a student group. And then appointments. Make yourself available. Let students know if you have walk-in hours or how to schedule appointments or how to get in touch with you again. Now, this is a required process. This may look a little bit different with the new CMS coming up, but typically on the third week of the term, the host coordinator has to verify the student's enrollment. The email, once you verify the number of credits the student is taking, an email is sent back to both coordinators. That allows the home coordinator to verify that billing and financial aid was dispersed correctly. And then remind students to notify you if they add or drop classes. Students are responsible for knowing their registration and how it will affect their billing and financial aid at their home institution. Okay, and activities on and off campus. This is some of the fun stuff that you can do with these NSE students. Again, you're their host. First of all, piggyback with your campus life and clubs, etc. I know a lot of NSE programs are partnered with their international programs office, and so connecting them with those activities for international students, doing service projects. Many of our campuses have really strong outdoor recreation offices and programs that organize trips, maybe there locally or throughout the region. So letting students know about those things. Hosting NSE specific events, especially if you have a budget, is really nice, both on and off campus activities. And this year, for the first time ever, actually, I've recruited my returning students to serve as hosts or actually as mentors. I've built an NSE mentor program. So those NSE students who have come back to their campus, to our campus, they are serving as hosts or mentors to those students that I'm hosting on exchange. Now, the end of the exchange, say farewell, host an event or lunch or ice cream social. In a few weeks at the end of this fall semester, we're going ice skating and we'll have dinner as well for the goodbye at the end of the fall semester. Uh, Make sure students have these important reminders that they're responsible for requesting a transcript at the end of their exchange or once their courses are posted. Let them know if they have unpaid bills, what's going to happen. Oftentimes that means they'll have a hold on their record and the transcript will not be released, so remind them of that. Um, and this doesn't happen very often, actually, but sometimes students want to transfer to their host institution. If a student asks about that, typically you're going to have to refer students to that transfer admissions office or complete that transfer admission process. It is important to remember that doing NSE does not guarantee admission to that university. Just because you're an exchange student does not mean you'll be accepted as a matriculating student, and nor does it count towards residency. So if an NSE student transfers to that host campus, typically it means they'll be handled as an out-of-state student paying out-of-state tuition. We also encourage campuses to always do assessment, do an exit interview, do a written survey, collect student testimonials, photos, videos, things that you can use for promotional purposes in the future. So my closing remarks, make sure students would recommend your campus. Oftentimes, especially the campuses that are a little bit off the beaten path, maybe you don't have a big name and many students don't know about you. It's the word of mouth that is really going to increase the number of students coming to your campus. So ask your students to spread the word. That may result in getting more incoming students coming to your campus. Take pride in your NSE program as well. I think for many of us, NSE is really one of the greatest joys of our work, and especially working directly with students and seeing the positive impact of NSE on them. So share your success stories with campus colleagues. That's always important to do as well. Now, a couple of reminders to catch up. We've done webinars the last couple of months. I'll share these slides out so you can have these links, but we did a marketing toolkit webinar in October. And we also did a working with outgoing students webinar last month, I think maybe 3 weeks ago. Those are recorded and posted on our YouTube channel. And save the dates. We have a few upcoming webinars. First of all, we'll be debuting the new NSE application system, part of our new CMS. That'll be on Thursday, December 18th. And I'll share this link with the Zoom registrations. These have also been shared a couple of times through our Constant Contact monthly briefs. Then we'll have a webinar on how to advise NSE applicants on choosing campuses, understanding chance of placement, etc. That's on January 15th. And then we will be doing a webinar on how to prepare for priority placements. That'll be in February. So please register for that and stay tuned for more information. That's the end of my presentation, my webinar today. I really appreciate you being here today, taking care of those incoming students. I think it's a really important role of the NSE coordinator. Some of you, it comes second hat. Is that a phrase? If you're already supporting incoming students, international or otherwise. But for a lot of us, accepting incoming NSE students, it's outside of the typical day-to-day routines. So making sure these processes are in place well in advance of actually accepting students is important. Again, I hope to see you next month for the next webinar, and enjoy the rest of your day.